All right. So, hey, Erin, welcome to the Feminine Frequency podcast. I'm super happy to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's such an honor to be asked to be a guest on it.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out in my mind how we exactly connected. I know that it was through the interwebs, through social media in some way, and you had me on your show a couple weeks ago, which was, I'm really grateful to have been a guest on your show as well.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. You never really know what somebody's going to say or what's going to go, but like I really enjoyed you sharing it, the way that you express yourself, the way that you stopped, paused, you closed your eyes to actually capture the moment before actually expressing it. So I felt that that in itself was just amazing. And then afterwards, you're like, I have a podcast coming out, and you're like, do you want to be on it? And I'm like, yeah, like of course I do.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you onto this show is because of your presence when we were interviewing and your presence online is I feel your commitment to the awakening of consciousness, and there's something about your own energy, the balance of the masculine and feminine within you that feels super grounding. And for me, what that looks like, my experience of that within you is that you have this presence and awareness, and you're also open and vulnerable. And it feels really, it's a beautiful duality that I think many men either are striving towards or don't even know that that's possible, because oftentimes vulnerability with men is seen as weak. Sharing emotions is seen as weak. So I'd love for you to share about how your evolution as a man, really opening up to your emotions, and if that's always been the case for you or if that's something that you've had to work on.
Yeah, that's a really really big beautiful question. And I appreciate all the things that you said prior to that. It really means a lot because where I am today took a lot of work to get here. So I appreciate you acknowledging a lot of that stuff. A lot of the things that I discovered while growing up had to do with the constructs that were put into our heads as males growing up. So my circle growing up was always females. My best friends were always females. I like the dynamics. I like sharing. I like the vibe and the energy of how we got together. But when it came to the dynamics of men growing up, if I wasn't macho or if I wasn't tough or if I wasn't what the male, like the ideas of what the male gender should be, it didn't feel like I actually fit in. And a lot of times, so let me bring it back. It didn't feel like I belonged. It would be like me trying to fit in constantly. And being around certain males, like it was like I was trying to fit in, and I'd use the slow, like the talks and the words, and like I just never really felt that I was myself, but I always felt like I had to be something else to fit in a lot of the males where at a young age, I did want to talk about thoughts and feelings and emotions, but we were taught that that's not what we talk about. So growing up, it put me actually into a lot of states of depression where it's just like, well, who am I? Like society dictates that a male should be this way, but yet I don't feel like that. Like I get sad, I want to cry. Society doesn't talk about eating disorders. I was a male at the age of 13 and I was bulimic. We don't talk about this stuff. A male is not bulimic. Like, and a lot of these things that came up, it's almost like growing up, all the things that I was from what was taught and what I would learn and what I saw in media made me feel as if I was broken. And that in itself put me into very deep states of depression, trying to fit in, drinking, booze, sex, trying to create that masculine role where I'm like, oh, I slept with this girl and I was with that other girl. And it's just like, eventually that actually rewired my brain to the point where I couldn't really connect with people. I couldn't connect with the feminine side of a lot of people because I wired my brain, especially for women, it's just like connection meant penetration. So if I wasn't doing that, then I wasn't really connecting. But yet when I would do that, I would feel so lonely. It's just like, so we would sleep for one night and then they would go, and that male construct that was driven to my mind, it's like, way to go. But then every other part of me, it's just like, I'm so fucking lonely. Like I want to be with somebody. It's not what I want. And it took a lot of years of taking that out of my mind of, you know what, it's just like, if talking about my emotions and talking about my feelings and being friends with women and connecting in that way and having body issues and stuff, it's like if this is all what's wrong with me, like if this is all what's wrong with me, it's just like, then maybe I should just start embracing all that's wrong with me, because everything that I try to become is not what I am, and it's making me feel less as a person. So why don't I just be what I'm going to be and see where that happens? And like, that's not something like, and then I had the revelation, and then the next day everything was good. I'm still working on myself. I'm still working on my image and the way that I feel, my self-image and the way that I see myself, and learning. But growing up through a lot of that, I found that a lot of males were not put into a situation where we're allowed to share our emotions, we're shared our feelings. It's like, man up, like, don't be like this. Real boys don't cry. It's just like, you must have a six-pack to be a man. You must be strong. You must be good at, it's like, but I want to paint. Like I don't really want to do all these things that people are telling me. Like, I was born this way. I didn't choose to be born this way. And now I have to live rules and laws of how a man needs to be. But my parents are different. It's like, my views are different. So it's just like, but why can't I be different? So that's just kind of a little bit of a background into the things that I was dealing with as a kid. Because once again, like, real men don't talk about their feelings. That was the idea back then. Like, school doesn't talk about that. If a man were to take any of like the home ec courses or stuff like that, it was seen as if, what's wrong with him? Oh, he's trying to be like a woman. But there in that question is like, but what's wrong with being a woman? What's wrong with embracing your feminine side? Did you not come from a woman? Did a woman not give birth to you? And you have the right to belittle them? I'm like, why don't you go get pregnant and have a kid? You know what I mean? It's just like, why don't you have to deal with all these things of just like, they have to look a certain way, they have to be a certain way, they have to talk a certain way, but they can't express certain things in a certain way. It's like, why don't we put all the pressure onto them, but then limit the way that they express themselves if they don't look a certain way, because that's not how a woman should be. It's just like, all these constructs are just like, you go crazy because you're like, but that's not who I feel like. So if you actually take away the gender and then you just bring in the humanity into it, it's just like, what does a human want? Well, great. Now go for that.
Yeah.
Oh, you're also a female? Oh, you're also a male? Okay, fine. But that doesn't matter. So it's like, we have the balance of the male and the female in both of us, in all of us, right?
Yeah, it was so interesting when you were sharing. That's exactly what I was picking up when you were sharing about your challenges when you were younger, of feeling like you didn't fit in or you had to try hard to fit in. And those are human experiences that anyone can have, no matter whether you're a male or a female. And that's exactly what came through for me in that. And I think that you are lifting the veil and opening the doors for this conversation in such a beautiful and powerful way. The wounded masculine is, the masculine who drives from ego, who seeks approval, who is the macho, who doesn't feel safe to share their emotions, shuts down, turns away when they're invited into an intimate conversation. And what you're referring to right now is what we call the divine masculine. And the divine masculine is a beautiful integration of having that powerful, being that powerful, safe space that men can be, having that grounded energy, and also inviting in the emotions and the ability to create connection. Because at the end of the day, whether you're male or female, we all just want connection. we all just want love. We want to love, we want to be loved. And I think that really is where the piece of the spiritual journey of how we can use spirituality for healing. I wanted to hear more about your experience with depression and mental health, and how your experiences, your pain when you were younger, how you've used spirituality, or where did spirituality come in for you in that process in supporting you moving through that?
So the times of going through depression, I would probably say I hit depression in my teenage years, and then once again when I was in my 20s. And the teenage years was the idea of I was trying so hard to fit in instead of recognizing all the places that I already belonged. And that caused a big rift in the individual I was. So growing up also, I had a little, like I had dyslexia, and like that's why even on my podcast, like reading of somebody's bio like out loud, it's like it's so challenging, but I love it. But that's where I am with it nowadays. But as a kid, when I would read, the teacher's like, stop being a class clown, you know, stop being this, stop being that. It's just like I was constantly told to stop being who I am instead of people asking why I am this way. So I took on the different roles, and then I literally created, it's almost like the Aaron that was loving, supporting, kind, compassionate, that wanted to speak about his feeling. I'm like, listen, I need you to go because society doesn't want you. So you're going to stand in a distance, but the Aaron that can fight, that can drink, that can smoke, that can do all these other things, you're going to take over the driver's seat. And that's what it was. It was almost like I was moving towards something, but like the person that I wasn't allowed to be who I was. So in my teenage years, that got me. When I got into my 20s, it was more drinking, party, party, party. I could drink more, I could eat more, I could lift more, I could do more. It's just like, it was all this egotistical things of just like, be more, be more. Even in business, it's like, I know everything and I can do it all. It's just like, I got to the point where I remember writing in my diary one day, or my journal, whatever you want to call it. It was just like, I am a fake, I'm a phony, I'm a liar, I'm not who people think I am. I don't even know who the hell I am anymore. I'm lost. I don't want to live anymore. I this is I don't want this anymore. And I remember just purging this all out and just being like, what's wrong with me? It's like I'm trying to be what everybody wants me to be. Like, why can't I just be that? And it gets to that point where it's just like, that's where the word of I'm broken, and then mental health, and then those aspects come in. It's just like, I want to be seen and loved by others, but I'm not being seen and loved by myself. And I don't mean that for you to love yourself, others must, like, you must first love yourself for others to love you. I don't agree with that, because I believe that sometimes a dog can teach us to love, our parents can teach us to love, family can teach us to love, a movie can teach us to love. But there is that sense of understanding what it is that you do want, and questioning yourself and asking those things. So I got to a really, really dark place in my life where I felt that I didn't want to be myself. So I would drink, because if I drank, then I can numb it. But the problem is, when you numb something for so long, other parts, it's almost like numbing is a dam. And when you create this dam, eventually all the things behind it, which is the water and the pressure, will break that dam, and then you get flooded. And that's what happened. I got flooded with thoughts and emotions and things like that. And I remember like spending time with children, because we would do programs with kids, and you know, they would be like, oh, you're my idol, I look up to you. And I'm just like, do they not see me? They're like, I'm not right, I'm broken. And I'm like, if these kids see that there's something good in me, maybe they're onto something. And then you know, I went traveling for about a month after that, and I got to this mountain, and like that voice, because we all have that voice in my head. It's just like, you can't do it, give up, you're not enough, what are you trying to do? And I'm like, every time I tell you to be quiet, you come back louder. Every time I try to ignore you, you find another way in my life. Every time I try to rename you, you put on a different disguise and you appear a different way in my life. I'm like, you know what? You might be right. You might be. But I also might be right. So I climbed the mountain. And then I got to the top and the voice got quieter. And I'm like, okay. And then I climbed 5 more mountains and it got a lot quieter. And then I went on a 65K bike ride. I was 230 pounds at the time. I was massive. And I came back and I lost about 30 pounds. And this is in about a month and a half. And people are like, how did you lose so much weight? I'm like, what you see is weight. What I see is emotion. I was carrying so much on me for so long in my life that I finally at the mountaintop was able to let go of it and say, you know what? That voice was never there to hurt me, but it was there to protect me. I showed that voice what I wanted to do as survival, and it was telling me how to survive. But once I showed it that, whoa, 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 I actually want to thrive. I don't want to survive. It's like, whoa, you can't do it. It's almost like a mother trying to protect their child, be like, you can't do this, or like, your curfew's 10 o'clock, and then you come home at 10:30. She's like, okay, fine. Next time, maybe 10:30. Showing it step by step, and then eventually it's just like, maybe you can do more. Yeah, well, like I'm okay with it. Like, let me show you more. And I still remember after that, and dealing with. I took a lot of pictures off that, and I met with my friend because this is when I was living in China, and I showed my Chinese friend. I'm like, listen, I took a lot of pictures. Kids are my life. Like, they really helped me to reconnect with myself. They saw something in me that I had lost, and I'm like, I wanted to create a charity to help kids in the countryside with their education. And my friend's like, that's a great idea. I'm like, okay. So she's like, how are you going to do it? I'm like, well, here's the pictures. And she's like, let me see them. I'm like, no problem. And I show her my pictures, and she's like, oh my God, these are really ugly. She's like, nobody would ever buy these. And then I'm just like, I stopped for a second. Instead of being reactive, I became responsive. And in the sense that I'm like, I recognize you. I know who you are. You're all my self-doubt sitting in front of me once again, being like, it's not that we don't think you can do it, Aaron. It's just you had this conversation, but you haven't done it. What's going to be different this time? And you know what? I'm just like, you might be right, but I'm still going to try. Once again, on the mountain, voices in my head, you might be right, but I'm still going to try. And then I did my gallery and a lot of these, and I ended up raising up money for kids in the countryside with education, and ended up moving in other parts of my life. Back to the mental health issue of it was the voices, the ones that talking to me, telling me that I can't do enough, and thinking that I needed to suffer in silence, thinking that I am alone, thinking that nobody can understand who I am because nobody else is going through this. Today we have a channel, we have social media, and it's allowing, a lot of people might be, social media is horrible. Social media is a tool. How you choose to use it will depend on that, right? You're on Instagram, you're doing things, and if I follow you, then you help me to better understand that, yes, there is permission. Yes, I am okay. Yes, that maybe I'm not perfect, but maybe perfection is not what I want. Maybe scars and flaws are what I want, because in that is my perfection. And in that allows me to connect with other people. And there's so much more out there that my belief is, there's the Bell Let's Talk Day. One day to talk about mental health. But mental health is not a one-day thing. It's an everyday thing. It's an every moment thing. It's, I'm not being seen. I'm not being heard. I'm not being understood. So where else can we get that? Well, by sharing. Brene Brown, I love Brene Brown. Like, Brene Brown is amazing because she talks about how messed up she is, and she's a shame researcher. And she's like, the reason that the people relate to me is because though I do this topic, I still have my own doubts and my own worries. And like, that's where it's about. It's not about connecting with things that make you feel that you're not enough, but it's connecting with people that are going through the same things, and putting yourself in those situations to grow, to learn, to understand. So yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like you consciously choose your social media platform to spread this awareness and to let people know the reason why it is so successful and why people are magnetized to you and really understanding you is because they are experiencing your pain in a way that they is familiar to them, and it makes sense to them because it's maybe for the first time where someone outside of themselves is saying the words that they've been saying to themselves for their entire life. And I wanted to go back to what you shared about your experience of what led to depression. And it was this experience of trying to be someone who you were not and suppressing who you really were. And from a spiritual perspective, there is also a physiological component to depression that I really want to be clear that it's not just spiritual. Yet when you incorporate the spiritual piece to this, it's that when you are the separation from self, when you are separated from who you truly are as a being, when you suppress that side of yourself, when you depress emotions, when you suppress your feelings, that comes out as depression, those loud voices, those negative voices, the self-criticism. And it's your ego, it's your soul trying to be who it really is, but your ego is trying to block that, is what's happening in those moments. So I love how you described your journey with that. And for people who haven't really heard the term spiritual awakening or don't really understand what that process is, what that process means, can you speak into that a little bit about what does it mean to have a spiritual awakening and what did that look like for you?
So the way that I talk about spiritual awakenings is, it's like taking your first breath for a second time. And there's the idea of, the movie The Matrix, where he gets unplugged from the Matrix. My idea of spiritual awakening was unlearning everything that I learned and realizing that the life is not perfect. Meaning that, like, there's no one way to live. There's no one way to express. That there's not, everything has not been written, and you're not just a character with no choice, but you're the author that can write your book every day. And if you don't like the book that you're writing, then realize that you're also the librarian that can put the book on the shelf and pick up another one. You know what I mean? You constantly have these choices and these abilities to be what it is that you want to be. So for me, I remember actually one of my awakenings was I was doing this trip and I was in Morocco, and I was chatting with this girl, and I'm like, you know what, for the rest of this trip, I don't want to use any of these apps. I just want to connect. So I disconnected from them. She had my Instagram still, and she wrote me a message. She goes, you call yourself the awakening self, but you're a fake, you're a phony, you're a liar. She's like, I read what you write, and it's just like, I feel like you're not even this person. And I sat with it, and I'm like, okay. And I remember going into the Sahara Desert, and I was just sitting there on the dunes. It was late at night, and I thought about what she said, and I started to cry. And then I made a video about this, and I'm like, she's right. Sometimes I'm not who I put out there to be. Sometimes things that I say, it might sound easy, but it is hard, and I'm constantly learning. Like, I'm not better than anybody, and nor do I ever want to be. Like, I'm me. I might have my high one day where I'm like, let me share this joy and this beauty about life. But then the next day I might be depressed. And I'm like, she's right. I don't share so much about that about myself. And I'm like, it's time for me to change. And it's almost like after I said that, I just went, and I accepted myself. I accepted my flaws. I accepted my everything. And the dynamic of my Instagram, the dynamic of the way I express, the dynamics of everything about me has changed because of that. Because I talk about days where I was so depressed where it hurt, like I couldn't breathe. It's almost like I was drowning. And as I was trying to go up for more water, my thoughts were pushing more and more on me. And it's like I was heavier and heavier. And it's just like I couldn't see the light. I couldn't feel, I couldn't be anything. It was almost as if like I was dying every moment, but yet there's still that one part of me that's just like swim, swim. And I didn't know what that part was. And finally, yeah, so, and I realized what it was. It was not accepting me for me, not accepting me for what I am. You know what? Like maybe I'm not the best. You know what? I am not the best, but I am the best in my life. I am the person that's constantly trying. I am the person that's trying to show love. I am that person that's trying to make my world and the world around me better. That's what I am. But I can't be who I am to you. But if I judge what I am only by the reflection of what you think I am, then I'll never truly be able to be what I'm going to become. Meaning that's just like, well, all the critics said this is about you. I'm like, yes, but in my heart, I know that that's not true for me because I am something more. I am not just a moment. That's the problem is sometimes we just get stuck on a moment. Sometimes we read 5 steps to mental health, 10 steps to achievement, how to become successful overnight. That doesn't happen. And the person that wrote that book, How to Do This Overnight, took about 20, 30, 40, 50 years to write that book. You know what I mean? The 5 steps, listen, you want to biohack something, it's not going to happen. There's no shortcut to you. And it's a long path of beauty and joy and magic and experience and wonders. And when we don't get stuck on this idea of that is who I am, no, it's not. That is what you are in this moment. But asking yourself, what do I want to become? Well, that's powerful because you realize that you constantly am the alchemist of your own life when you use the proper questions to change one state into another. So back to what you're talking about, spirituality. So that's it. It was letting go and acceptance and understanding that nobody really knows what's going on and that you have the same right as everybody else and your fate is not written in stone.
Yeah, the connection to the creator within you, which is also the connection to the creator of the universe, of everything that is living and breathing around us, is recognizing that there's that within you as well, and that you are the creator of your life or co-creator of your life. And I love that you use the term co-author, and I love the visual of the librarian putting it back if you don't, you know, if you're ready to move on to the next book. And it is one of the most empowering moments when I see my clients, when I see people who have been feeling like they're a victim to their circumstances, which was me for 28 years before I truly went through my spiritual awakening. And I will have many more spiritual awakenings. So it's not just one. I just want to really emphasize to listeners, it's not just like one awakening and then you're enlightened, right? This is like the journey, like Aaron has been talking about. So yeah. And in that moment for me and for my clients, the biggest shift that happens is that we become empowered to know that we do have a choice to how we respond to things. We do have a choice to how we show up in the world. We do have a choice to whether we want to keep the same job or live in the same city or be friends with the people who you're surrounding yourself by. You do have a choice on what you want to share. And from that place, everything is possible. And you can start to actually visualize what you want for yourself instead of go based off the steps that you were taught were correct or right, or the steps that are going to make you quote unquote successful.
One of the key things that I actually did that helped me was, and it's part of my daily, when I do my daily meditation and routines and stuff like that, one of the things that I say is, may I forgive, may I be forgiven, and may I forgive myself. and because I'm going to make mistakes. And during this time where I was going to that, I see, I don't believe in past, present, and future, because I believe that we can constantly speak to our past to help us better understand our present to become what we choose in the future. So when I was going through a lot of this, I sat down with my younger self and I said, thank you. Thank you for going through everything that you went through. Thank you for the struggles. Thank you for the tears. Thank you for the depression. Thank you for everything. Because of what you went through, I am able to be who I am today. And I'm so grateful. And then I sent out messages to a lot of the women. And I said, I'm from who I was then to who I am now is very different. And if I caused any harm in your life, or if I hurt you in any way, I am from the bottom of my heart so sorry. And I apologize for it. Because what I know now, I didn't know then. And I was trying to figure out who I was. And then I sent it out to other kids that I got into fights with. I said, I'm sorry. And I apologized. I got it all out because I'm like, you know what? I cannot become who I want to be if I'm still holding on to all of my yesterdays. So I did it,
That,
and I let go of it.
yeah. And that's the gift of forgiveness. It's a gift to yourself that you no longer have to carry that burden, and you may have to forgive yourself. Like you said, if this is part of your daily practice, it might be over and over and over again. For those of you who are new to forgiveness or new to this concept, there is a beautiful Hawaiian prayer called Ho'oponopono, and you can look that up online. And it is a daily practice of forgiveness to yourself and to others, and to come back to love. Because if we're in the space of feeling guilty or regretful or resentful, you can't be in love and gratitude at the same time. You can be in either or. And the forgiveness is what bridges the gap to take you from the fear-based mind, the regret, the projections onto others, back to love and the present moment right now, which is really the only thing that will allow you to be joyful. If you carry the past with you, it can be a really heavy burden. So I love that you have a forgiveness practice in your daily practices. And I know there's no step-by-step how to become happy, how to be spiritual. And what I'd love for you to share with the listeners is, can you share some of the spiritual practices that work for you at this time on your journey? What are some of the things that feel really good for you and help you to connect?
So one of the things that I've done to help me is when I have my morning routine. And the thing is, the one thing that I've learned is protect your time, because if you don't protect it, nobody's going to protect it for you. So I protect every morning when I wake up. I do my meditation, and I've studied a lot of meditations, a lot of breath work, a lot of stuff, but I found the one that works for me, and that's the one that I developed for myself. Now, I believe that for myself, I don't judge it. So if it's 5 minutes today, it's 5 minutes today. If it's 40 minutes tomorrow, it's 40 minutes tomorrow. If it's 5 minutes for 6 months, then it's 5 minutes for 6 months. I let myself just to breathe and just sit in the cinema of my mind. And I literally sit in a chair and I watch my thoughts and my feelings and my emotions. And I'm just like, okay. I'm like, oh, this is an interesting movie. I'm really enjoying this one. I'm like, oh, I know that character. And I'm just letting it go and go. And then after I stop, I take my breath, and then I go into my routine, which is may. So I wish something for me, for my friends and my family, and for everybody in the earth. And it's like, may we all be healthy, may we all be happy, may we all be liberated, may we all be free. May we all learn how to forgive, be forgiven, and forgive ourselves, and find peace in our hearts and in our daily lives. And then I go into the next part of it, which is where I speak to the source, to the angels, to everything. And I ask them, I say, may you help me on my journey. May you help me with the things that I do not know, or will you help me see the things that I cannot see? Because I don't know. I'm only learning. The whole reason I do the forgiveness thing is because I might have to forgive myself today, but it's only a lesson that I needed to learn, right? I might have done something wrong to somebody today, but it's a lesson that I needed to learn. It's things that needed to learn. I didn't intentionally mean to hurt or harm people. And then I set out my intentions. So I do my, there's a mantra that people can put in, but I'm just like, I prosper everybody and everything and everybody prospers me. And then I go further on that line. Now, in the daytime, I make a statement. But in nighttime, because I do this twice a day, I ask a question so that when I wake up, I have an answer. And then I thank the divine for my breath, for my life, for being here. This is a gift. And I talk about the things that I'm grateful for. And then I breathe, I do that. And then one thing is I make my bed, always make my bed. And then, I'll do my stretching and I'll do the other things. And then I go into my journal and I set out my day. It's like, what is a message that you could write to yourself today? What are the 3 tasks that you need to do? Who do you need to connect with? And then it's just like, I ask myself all these different questions because I want to be able to prime myself for the day. What is one challenge that you might face today? How do you think you'll handle it? What is one way to be outside of your comfort zone today? It's just like, how will you know that today is a great day? And then I finish that. And then the end of the day, I have a rating system. And then it's just like, well, what's one thing that you handle well today? And what's one thing that you can handle better tomorrow? And I do this. And then I also set out my schedules and my weeks. And the reason is because the idea of manifestation is only about setting up an objective and a goal. The universe wants to help you to succeed. It wants to help you to do things. But if you're not very clear on how it can do it, it will not be clear on how it can be done. So my saying is always, the universe has your back as long as you have your front. When you have your front, the universe is like, oh, so that's your goal and that's what you want to do? Beautiful. Let's get those unicorns. No, I'm just joking. But let's get those things for you because now I see the direction that you want to go. Now you're allowing me to help you. But not only that, the universe is like, let me call my friend. Yo, inspiration, motivation, come. And then inspiration, motivation comes to see you. And then it's just like, yo, compassion, come check out this person. And it's just like joy and compassion. And all of a sudden, all these entities are living through you because they're like, oh my God, this is what a human experience is. The biggest problem that I felt was I tried to be spiritual and that made me numb as a human. But when I became human, I became spiritual. I allowed life to live through me instead of going, I want to live through the stars. No, the stars are looking at you because they want to live through you. The moon's staring at you because it wants to experience you. The sun wants to experience you. Everything wants to experience you because there's never been another you and there'll never, ever be another you. So it's just like, give them the opportunity to experience you in your life. So that's my thing.
And we're totally going to end this conversation here because that was brilliant and beautiful. And for those of you who want more of Aaron, he shares incredible videos on a consistent basis through his Instagram. So tell them where they can find you.
So you can find me on my Instagram, which is The Awakening Self. I'm also on my podcast, which is also The Awakening Self. I have a YouTube channel. I still don't know the link for it, but I have a YouTube channel that I'm growing. And then through that, DM me, send me questions. I'm the most approachable person in the world. Talk to me, share. I love hearing about people's stories. I love hearing about their journeys. I love people, being people. And yeah, so these are the places that you can find me for now. And in the end, also later this year, I'll have my book coming out, which is great. And a whole bunch of other stuff. It's 2020 vision, right?
2020 vision. And I appreciate how you show up powerfully and consistently, no matter what's going on in your world, and that you use your pain, you alchemize your pain into purpose. And through that, you are serving so many souls in this lifetime. So thank you for being such a leader in consciousness. Thank you for sharing your voice on this podcast. And I'm sure we have many more interactions to come. Thanks for being here.
I look forward to it, and thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, that's a wrap for today.